Nice, man. We're back.
We're back, brother. How amazing.
Been what? Just over a year.
It has been a year and 1 month since we have connected like this.
Man. That's almost impossible to believe. But it is at the same time, when I actually think about how much has gone on within that year, it is possible to believe.
Yeah.
It's like one of those things where it went really fast, but at the same time, you're like, fuck, should have really made the time. But like all things, everyone goes through different journeys and evolutions, so that probably themes up how we ended up in this new studio.
That's it. Yeah, man, 100%. And obviously, welcome back to all of those who listened to our previous HYPECAST podcast. We appreciate you and welcome back. And for all the new listeners, welcome.
Yeah.
This is a new evolution of the HYPECAST. We've rebranded it.
Yep.
It's called Strive
100, and we've even got cameras now. But most of you guys wouldn't be used to seeing our ugly faces, but we've now got Nathaniel behind the cameras. We'll introduce you guys to him at some stage soon as well. Yep. So, Ben, it's all been happening, and it's been such a hectic year from the last time we stopped. And I actually remember the last podcast we did and thinking things are getting busy. I probably didn't expect it to get that busy, but at the same time, with all challenges comes good rewards, and I feel this is like just getting to talk like this is a massive reward.
That's true. That's so true.
For the last 365 days.
I don't know how we continue to one up our workload every year, but we manage to do it somehow. And I swear every year we go, wow, that was such a crazy year. Yeah. And we continue to do it. But yeah, like you said, and for those listening as well, this podcast is an hour a week out of our days that was just so... Is cathartic the right word? It was just like so...
That's a good word.
It was so good for us because we're just constantly in motion. We're constantly busy and don't necessarily have a great deal of time to connect with each other. We work in the same office, but we barely sort of, see each other throughout the day, and we're always chatting, but it's always about something to do with business. And so, or making decisions. And so this has always been such a great sort of 1 hour of our time that we turn off our phones and we're able to connect, and it just shows how powerful it is to spend that time to genuinely connect with someone and chat. And so I'm so happy that we're back, and I know a lot of people have been asking us about the podcast, and it gave a lot of value to a lot of people, which was also surprising to me.
It was
how much people got out of it. So I'm also super happy that we can give back and talk about things that hopefully people want to hear about. But tell us about Strive. Like what was your reasoning behind Strive?
Yeah, so the podcast, and by the time you guys hear the podcast or get to view it, you'll probably see a bit of insight into the branding and how it came together. So for me personally, I felt with HYPECAST, it started from me and Miles starting Hype and saying we wanted to start a podcast, and then that led to HYPECAST.
Hype being a marketing agency for those who don't know.
And that was a very simple evolution that we were working in our marketing agency. Why not talk about all the things we do on a daily basis and bring in clients that we have on a daily basis? Like everything, evolution takes place. And what we started finding was, whilst we obviously have great clients, it's very hard for all the people that come into our world and our network to fit into a marketing business realm, entrepreneur realm, which we started becoming known for. For those of you that don't know, Miles and I, we do a lot of things outside of Hype, be it we have different product-based businesses, we both enjoy martial arts, we have really, really cool friends and family, and often at times it was hard to really see how we could position getting some of those people onto the podcast, because they would even say, I'd love to chat to you guys, but I don't know anything about business, or I'm not in business, or I'm not an entrepreneur. And we're like, no, doesn't matter. Just come and chat.
Yep.
We love you. You've always got a great story to tell. And they're some of the best people that we want you guys to hear from. But there was a barrier to entry because of how Hype had become positioned as a leader in marketing and business and startups and entrepreneurs. So by no means are we getting rid of those people coming on the podcast. We just wanted to open up to a wider audience to listen to some really, really cool people. Every day, I think I hear an awesome topic or subject from someone that's super inspirational, that I know you guys would get a lot of value out of. So that's how we rebranded and changed towards Strive. And Strive is just referring to, basically by definition, anyone wanting to get better at whatever their craft is, always striving for more. And that's something that I think Miles, I definitely know, lives by. I try to live by, always looking for continual improvement. So that's kind of where the branding and name came from, and that's kind of what we're trying to aspire with people that come onto the podcast.
Bro, you just spoke so well.
No, thanks, man. It's probably been something I've been thinking about for a while.
That's
probably,
so good.
Probably because it's been sitting in my head for a year because we haven't been able to do a podcast for that long. But man, I'm just really, really excited because some of the people are super undercover that provide me and you so much inspiration that I know just them, how they strive every day to achieve more, deliver more, and give back to whoever is close to them. And sometimes not even close to them. They just do it because they're just genuinely great humans. I feel will really capture people's attention. And I think the other good thing that will happen is, for those that don't know, Miles very much heads up one of our product businesses called Combat, and it's also a gym. And I look after Sprout, which is our infant formula business that's growing great legs as well. So there's often times that you'll be more connected to someone and I'll be busy, that you could easily hop on with that person, and vice versa. Same thing occurs with me. And it was also stopping us because HYPECAST became known as both of us. And it became very hard for us to separate one or the other. So we both...
Well, you'd be interstate and I'd be like, you should jump on that guy.
Exactly.
You know?
And it was always and it was always a thing of you'd be like, man, jump on with that. Or I'd be like, you should interview that person. And it was like, oh, well, we can't because we had co-branded it together that it became very hard to create any type of separation. Whereas now I feel... you want to hop on with Volks because you went down to shoot content with him. You would chat with Volks. I may be in Melbourne doing something for Chemist Warehouse, and I may get to chat to their GM, whatever it may be. So it allows some freedom in that as well.
It's so true, and it just shows sort of how much we build these walls and structures for ourselves, which is sometimes really good because you want the structure to know exactly what's sort of required of you, and this is what's expected in the podcast, and how I need to organize and structure this podcast. And people out there would relate to this, where it's, oh, I need to create some structure when I'm producing content for my business, or social media schedule for my business, or a daily planner for my operations. Like, I don't know, it could come in so many different ways, but we just kind of broke down all of those walls, and we're like, hey, let's just not try and be perfect with this. Let's not try and pigeonhole ourselves into talking into one topic, or and let's just do what we feel is right. And I think that that's always something that's come naturally for you. I've always loved the structure. When we started the HYPECAST, I wanted to talk about business and I wanted to provide value, and I wanted us to have topics and things like that. But that rigidity sort of it stops you as well from progressing. As opposed to, hey, we didn't even have our branding done yet, but we do the podcast anyway. The podcast studio is not perfect. Who cares? Let's just get it done. And I think that really is a lesson that I've learned a lot over the years, is to remove the feeling of perfectionism and just to progress. And it really does help.
I feel a lot in that same space that progress is progress, and perfectionism is striving for perfectionism is great, but you'll never ever hit it. So if you're taking steps forward, as I feel we are, sometimes I look at some of the stuff that we do and the evolution is always taking place. I know we'll get into the gym and everything that's going on there, and Combat and Sprout, but none of it has ever been perfect. And it never will be. Like, if we were to launch everything how exactly we would want, we would never launch anything because it would never be 100% right or perfect.
I think the idea of perfectionism evolves as well, because you're constantly seeing new things and the way new things are done, and new levels to what you prescribe as perfectionism. And so your idea of that changes and evolves, so you never reach it. You're always, at a level that that you're at. You have a certain amount of resources, skills, experience, and ability. And you're always looking at people that have more resources, skills, experience, and ability, whether it's a big business that has teams and teams of teams doing the things that you're trying to do, or whether it's just, someone who's spent a lot more time doing that particular thing than you. And you're trying to emulate that same, what you think is perfectionism. And it's just a forever moving thing. So I think but that's something that really, stifles people and stops them from progression and striving. So
it definitely is like that. I like the best part about moving forward, even when it's not perfect, is you gain the fondest memories of what things used to be like. And honestly, that's usually the happiest times for me. Just even thinking, use the podcast, for example. We started by building a weird square room in the middle of our office that would be, if people can see this, no further than this desk away. Now we have a full space, but we got Rex, one of the lads, to come in and just knock it up. And then we just hopped in there and then started recording. And every 4 seconds you would hear a door slam or a mouse drop or something, because the office was still operating around us. And it wasn't perfect, clearly. It was far from perfect. And so then we went, all right, we need to move to the next stage because this isn't perfect, but we want to get a bit further. So then we took over the office next door, and within that office, you had a large office within there. So then we put the podcast within that space, which was a massive step up for us. And we had a big steam mural in the back, and that was sick. And then we started recording there, but then your office got too busy, where it was just a case of, well, we can't always record in Miles's office because you have shit to do. So left that office, moved in more staff because it was just taking up too much room for just a podcast, and we needed more staff to grow and resource up. And then now we took over the further office within our level to then set up this, which now feels like unbelievable. But I have no doubt in a year's time or two, or whatever it may be, we'll look back at this and go, now let's evolve again.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing that I do enjoy the most, obviously, about doing stuff with you, that it is a constant evolution and we are constantly growing. Sometimes it's painful because we're not stopping and we're never getting the opportunity to breathe or enjoy things. I think we may be approaching a balance where we're probably realizing when's the right time to move and grow, when's the right time to settle and enjoy it. But that process in itself, when we're talking about striving and wanting more, is even hard to work out. Just that aspect alone of going, are we ready to make the next step? For you and I, often it's a case of just going, even if we aren't 100% ready, we feel like we've got good people around us, we got great teams, we believe in each other. What's the worst that can happen in most cases? And it's generally 99% of the time worked out. There's been pains, there's been struggles, but at the end of the day, we've put one foot forward and been able to move forward. So I think that in all aspects of why we rebranded and why Strive came about, and referring to Strive Studios, where this content is being shot, is what I'm hoping that we can deliver content for, but we're also hoping to be able to get other people to be able to shoot their content in here, to be able to create a space, because as you know, and you've heard most recently, so many people want to share their story and content. They just haven't had the ability, and I'm hoping that what we've created here will allow other people to be able to get their message out in some manner, for sure.
That's fantastic. Just what you were speaking about before about, perfectionism and stuff. If it was a couple of years ago and I came in here and these curtains weren't steamed, we probably wouldn't do the podcast.
We wouldn't. We'd unpick every single one and go home, iron them, and then do it in about 4 weeks' time.
That's how we've progressed.
Yeah. No, that's a valid point.
But yeah, you were talking a lot about the evolution that we particularly have gone through and what's sort of got us to this point, and just our personalities and our, desire and motivation to continue progressing. And like you said, it's a blessing and a curse. I mean, it's just a part of our nature. It's a part of our personality, and we're lucky that we've connected with each other that have similar values and motivations. But yeah, sometimes it's like, I wish that I didn't have this,
Yeah.
you know, this nature or this personality trait that, you know, forced us into this constant perpetual action. But it's just who we are. And I think it's important that people really understand and try and work out and reflect and work out who they are. Because I know a lot of people might see us or other people and think that that's what they need to do, you know, in life, or they might become, you know, self-conscious by their actions not being as much as ours. And I know a lot of our friends and people within our community feel that way. And I guess I really just want to get the message across that it's like everyone's on their own journey. Yeah. And this is just our personality. Yeah. It's the way that we're wired. And if you're not wired that way, that's fine. Yeah. If anything, that's probably great because you don't have to deal with what we deal with on a daily basis. And I tell you, some of the things that you and I have to deal with on a daily basis and the decisions are literally life-altering and can be life-altering in a negative way every day. Like it's like our houses and our businesses and our, you know, future are constantly sort of threatened by the progress that we continually strive for. But we are, and I talk about it a lot even with my own family, we are very much people who are conditioned for big risk, for big reward, and we're very aware of the consequences of those actions and that way of thinking. And that's just the way that we have decided to, you know, fulfill the strategy of our life and our career, I guess.
I think there's also the aspect of environmentally being brought up in a specific way also alters how you'll behave. So you can't all of a sudden think you're going to hit whatever the age may be and then just go, I'm going to completely change my environmental situation to act in a completely different manner. I think that's probably the thing that I've noticed most is that when someone is genuine and authentic, because they've been brought up a certain way, they haven't changed, they've continued to do their thing, they get great results in whatever it is they choose to do. And that's not saying
it's true.
They're choosing to be an entrepreneur or choosing to do really whatever it is. It's just that they're being true to themselves. I think because of the rise of social media, because of this like almost imposter syndrome, people are looking at something, resonating for that moment, thinking, I like that, so I'm just going to try and replicate that. And you can't replicate something else. You can take good bits of what someone else is doing or what you like about whatever it is and then try and add that to who you are and how you're made up. But you can't be that. Like you can't, and nor should you want to be like that. You should be really comfortable with who you are and trying to just improve. That was my biggest thing on why I thought the new podcast and the new branding really just leans towards improvement. If you can improve just the smallest percentage over even the course of a year, you should be proud of that. Yep. Like everyone should take stock in the aspect of that. If you're able to move a small bit forward, you have to move backwards. Yep. So at the end of the day, I also think that you and I probably are have a lot of self-criticism that sometimes we don't feel like we've moved as far as we would want. And some people may find that odd because they see a lot of things happening. But when you have big goals, big dreams, often we're way short of them all the time, actually. Like it is something that we have to remind ourselves that we did get forward. We did do something good. Even if it didn't end up being exactly where we thought it would be, it's still movement in a positive direction. So for that, you should be proud. And then I also understand that sometimes things don't work out. We've taken some shots over the last year, and rather than sitting and beating yourself up about it, it's just always better to dust yourself off and just say, how am I going to get forward next time? Because the worst thing you can do is go into a state of self-pity, sit there feeling sorry for yourself, things didn't work out for me, woe is me. Then the next time you all of a sudden don't want to take the chance, where everyone has losses. The older you get, the more I realize life, it really is, unfortunately, you're going to lose more than you're going to win. Like be it that you're going to lose friends, you're going to lose family, things get smaller and tighter, be it your circle, but at the same time, you also notice how more valuable the wins are and how great it is even just getting through to the next stage, because that means there's an evolution occurring within that, which I think is something that's really often glanced over and something that we'll definitely try and highlight within the podcast moving forward on all the people that we know that are moving forward with great things.
Yeah, and you touched on so many things just then that I think about quite a lot. Things about like attaching your identity to a position or a situation or a status or a job or an outcome. I think a lot about that. I think a lot about, and I know we're going to discuss a lot of these things throughout the podcast, and we don't necessarily need to go into it in depth in this first episode, but I think all of those things are so important to talk about and to make people feel comfortable being themselves and knowing that it's okay to be themselves and to figure out who they are. I think that's the most important thing in life. And also, you know, we are not one thing. That's something that, you know, I see a lot of people struggle with. They think they need to be, you know, something in particular, or they are always striving for this like status. And I think it's really dangerous where, you know, you can be so many different things in life and you can have so many skills and you can develop in so many different ways. Like you don't need to attach your identity to one particular thing. And I think that's something that served us. And, you know, if someone asked us, like, how do you continue to evolve and create these new businesses? And I think it is that we, you know, are able to be malleable and adapt, and we have different interests, and that might inspire different sort of actions and different progress in different directions. And I think that that's what allows us to keep progressing and evolving. And we've seen it. I mean, we've failed miserably with some businesses, but we haven't let it affect us, just like you said. And we've lost hundreds of thousands of dollars, which I know would absolutely cripple, you know, most people. And you get to the point where there's the fork in the road where you're like, am I going to let this cripple me, or am I just going to let it sort of disappear and fade away and get on with life? And we've always, you know, for some reason chosen that route to just give it up and move on. And it's always served us well. And now we use that as experience to make better decisions moving forward. So like you said, failure is just a part of it. And having the failures that we've had, the great failures that we've had has allowed us to make better decisions to create the great successes that are unfolding. So, you know, we're talking about this evolution. We're talking about where we've been over the last year. Obviously, you know, one of the businesses that you're the CEO of that we have is Sprout Organic, and that has just been such an incredible journey. Tell us and tell the audience a little bit about that and where we've come from in the last year, and you know, the fact that we're, I guess, fulfilling our mission.
Yeah, well, Sprout was it was definitely something that had been dormant for a while, almost similar in this aspect that no one heard about it for a long period, and then all of a sudden it came on the scene, be it an infant formula that was plant-based and organic, but it was overall a kids nutrition brand that just wanted to do better for the world. That was how I thought of it, and it was just no different to how all evolutions take place, where previously my thoughts and process was all around performance, in all honesty, in a selfish manner for myself. So sports nutrition became a thing because I wanted to achieve peak athletic performance. And then obviously I retired from being a professional athlete, but then that passion still continued over to wanting to help other people achieve continual peak performance. So with that background, it became very, very clear to me that in all honesty, before I had kids, that was all I thought about. It was like, what was my driver in terms of how can someone get faster, stronger, fitter, more active, mentally sharper, more energy, all those types of things, just so they could keep going more and doing more. And then I had my first son, Ellis, and it was all of a sudden nothing was about me anymore, and everything was about him, and wanting him to be his very best within all aspects of life. And I think nutrition is the foundation to everything for everyone. If you have bad nutrition, it's obvious. It leads to disease, obesity, all these things that will reduce how long you live and how long you get to do things that you enjoy. So as soon as my attention shifted to him, it was, how am I going to feed him? This feeding process for most kids, unfortunately, breastfeeding is becoming shorter. We all know that breastfeeding is best, but what is the next stage for them? Is it formula? Is it supplementation? Is it, how do you plug in nutritional holes if they're not eating properly? And that was where Sprout really formed in my head, and how could we deliver not only a product that people could connect and resonate with, but a brand that had a tone, a personality, a voice, authority, influence. And that whole process kind of took place over the last 1.5 to 2 years. And I was incredibly lucky that even before we started the agency, or at the same time as we started the agency, that was when he was born. And it was also the time that, due to yourself and the team that we have here, I was able to go, this is probably the one and only opportunity that we have the resource and power to do something that is going into $100 billion industry, be it infant formula. You can't do that just rolling up and saying, hey, I have a great product. Yeah. It's the most heavily regulated, controlled, mafia, dairy influenced product in the world. So having the resources, the belief, the team, the resilience at the time, through all that we have, allowed it to really come to life. And then July last year, 2021, was when we released the first product, a world first product, be it a plant-based and organic infant formula. And since then, we released it July 9th. We sold a couple hundred tins online, and now we're up to over 50,000 into Chemist Warehouse, into 800 other retailers, making it about 1,300 retailers across Australia, sold to 55 plus countries from our website, have helped thousands and thousands of families, which is by far the most rewarding part of everything we've done. Just people saying, until you guys came along, we had no option. Our kids were suffering. We were suffering. We didn't know what to do. And now we have a choice. And if we're able, a lot of people have actually bought the product and have actually said, we bought the product more out of relief that we have a backup option in case this breastfeeding journey doesn't work out. Some I know have had the product, haven't used it, and given it to a friend, and they just had it almost just sitting there just out of wanting the safety net. And hearing stuff like that, sometimes it makes me a bit sad that there wasn't an option for all these people beforehand, but it makes me happy to know that we've been able to provide an option that parents can move forward with, Aussie families, international families, all different ethnicities. So, Ben, just really blessed and stoked on that journey to date. Long road ahead of us, but we're doing all right with it. We're doing okay so far.
Yeah, it's such a fascinating journey, isn't it? And it's the experience that we've got from it is just so valuable as well. I mean, we've never really experienced, I mean, you know, when you ran Biscuit Cafe, it had a viral effect to begin with. So I, you know, am probably speaking for myself more than you, but of this magnitude, I guess. Yep. It's the first product that we've seen that has had a seriously viral effect because it just ticks all the right boxes, being the type of product, the product to market fit so early, a trending category, and just something that people are really starving for in the market. And it really seems simple, right? Yeah. But as you sort of expressed at the start, the regulations and the entry, you know, the walls of, you know, that would block your entry into this sort of industry are just so huge that it's not something that anyone can sort of do. But the thing that I love about this story is how organic it is, and I think that is at the essence of this, the success that we're having. It is because the story is organic, and you mentioned it before about authenticity. That, you know, whoever you are, as long as you're being authentic and you know, you're telling that authentic story, generally you'll see that these people who are authentic have success. And we're experiencing that now, where you and Jen were going through exactly this experience where you couldn't find a product that suited you guys and what you wanted to feed your family with. And luckily, because of your background, your education and experience over the last 15 to 20 years, being an exercise scientist, being a product development manager, you know, for over a decade, and having that ability to create a product like this, you were able to, you know, bring the dots together and create a product like this, and also, you know, have an agency with resources. So, you know, people also need to understand that background as to how this thing came together. It's not just that you decided one day to start an infant formula and now it's on Chemist Warehouse's shelves, you know.
For sure. And I think probably the thing that led to a lot of its success to date was the aspect of straight away me looking at this $100 billion industry and going, I don't have all the answers. Like I'm new to this. We're a year in. So people often say, oh, like, you worked that out. How did you do this? How do you do that? I said, I just went and found the right people. It wasn't a case of me saying I had an idea, I had a concept, and I was able to put it on paper on what I thought would work. But I can tell you, from the QA specialists to the research and development to the legal teams that we employed, we just went and tried to find the very best people as quickly as we could, which everyone probably is aware, but costs a lot of money to be able to get those things in place. But you have to do that. If you're really wanting to put the very best thing out there, you need to dot all I's and cross all T's, because the one thing that we knew going into this industry was there would be no second chance. There would be a lot of guns pointed at us trying to do anything different. And I think naturally, by personality, we're very disruptive. We would never do a product that was just a Me Too product. And you can do a Me Too product. There's nothing wrong with that. You can do it and make it look a bit better, and you'll gain a pretty large audience, and you'll have a lot less risk because it's been proven and tried. Whereas if you're going all in with a disruptive product, you need to have really, really looked into it, and also understand the risk is extremely high. The risk is, if it doesn't work out, you will lose everything. Like that's what the risk is with a disruptive product. The upside to that is you'll change lives if it does come off, and you'll change an industry. No different to an Uber, no different to an Airbnb. I just was really fascinated by those stories. And the weird thing is, when I think about it, for all the stuff we do, we always, when would we catch a taxi now?
Never.
Never. We never would, because we're also drawn to other disruptive brands. How often do you really stay in a hotel now? Be it us. Never. We'll always book an Airbnb first, because we're attracted to people that change the game. And that was something that we always want to do with the brands and businesses that we launch.
And we know it aligns with our personality rather than...
Exactly. And so because of that, I feel the story, we know the story is 100% authentic. Be it Combat, be it Sprout, it's always a case of wanting to deliver more or strive for more for whoever is closest to us. And then we hope that by doing the things for the people closest to us, in this case family, in Combat's case is friends and family, that it can get a larger audience that also resonates with that, and hopefully that larger audience grows again and again and starts to replicate and becomes bigger and bigger, till you start all of a sudden attracting more and more people that are like you, that you can enjoy and spend more time with.
Well, that's just a natural effect of a brand, a product and a business that connects all the dots in the right way, in an organic way. But something that you said as well, which I thought was so powerful and I didn't want to gloss past, was the fact that you said we didn't have all the answers, and you were brave enough to be vulnerable, to go to these professionals and say, I don't know how to raise money properly, or, you know, I don't know how to build this data room properly. I need your help. And it's so amazing how little people do this
Yeah.
because they're so afraid to be vulnerable and show something that they don't know.
Yeah.
And you know what? On the other end, they're so appreciative of that. The professionals are appreciative because they are able to do their work and they're able to assist you in the field that they are the professional in. And I think that that's such an important message is, you know, it's okay. We don't know everything. You're not supposed to. We don't necessarily have the capabilities as humans or the time on earth to learn everything.
Exactly. Man.
So that's why we go to these professionals and we ask for their assistance and it's been great. And it's been, you know what, it's also a caveat to that is also just trusting your gut and understanding your own experiences. So if you engage a professional and in your gut you don't feel as though this professional is making logical decisions, asking the questions, and if you don't feel that this engagement is right, cancelling the engagement and moving on. Yeah, it's like there's so many layers obviously to the conversation, but and then the other thing is I didn't realize how expensive it was to build a sustainable brand and business.
It's definitely a lot more expensive now than what it used to be back in the day. That's for sure. It is.
And it's not just Sprout; it's Combat. It's everything that we've been involved in.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what the business is to build something now. And I guess it's just a case of no different to anything. It just feels harder when it's a business, but to build a house now is 10 times more expensive than what it used to be back in the day. To build a business, no different. So I think it's just the fact that most people aren't building 10 houses in their lifetime where we've tried to build or look after multiple businesses. So it feels like there is a massive pressure within that. I think another thing that you kind of alluded to when you said we don't have all the answers is also an aspect of, I will 100% attest to this for myself anyway, sometimes feeling the aspect of going, not only do I not have all the answers, I don't understand any of this. Like it's not in my makeup or it's not in my experience. So I don't actually really understand what's going on to also say, I don't understand this. So it's important that I, one, be comfortable and have no ego to openly say, I don't understand this. Yeah. Because the worst thing you can do is try to pretend that you understand something and you'll get taken advantage of, or you'll be made to look like a fool at a later date because you were the one that said, hey, I'm doing this or I get this or whatever it may be. So I feel that aspect of really just understanding who you are, as you were saying at the start, is really important to ensuring that you can go on this journey, whatever the journey may be, and feel comfortable to take the right steps and progress within that whole experience.
Yeah, I talk about this story a lot. People may have heard it before, but for those who haven't heard it, is responding exactly to that was when I was in law and I was speaking to an accountant who was trying to refer a client to us at the time, and it was about a complicated tax law matter, and he was asking my opinion, and I really had no idea. And I just basically said, I really have no idea what the answer is, but I'm going to find out what the answer is and then I'll let you know. And we got off the phone and I did my research. I found the answer and I called him back and I let him know the answer. And little did I know at that particular time how big of an impact that actually was. That just felt natural for me at the time to just say, I don't know. Yeah. I was confident enough to say that. And it won us the job, which was a very big job for us at the time. And the accountant said to us, I'm not used to a lawyer, saying that they don't know something. Yeah. You usually find in this industry that they'll try and fake their way into an answer, and it gets us into more trouble than good. Yeah. And that's why we got the job. And I was young at the time too. So that was a huge lesson for me. And I think it just reaffirmed for me the importance of being vulnerable in that circumstance, and how important it was to that it's okay not to know. And I think that we've taken that concept into everything that we've done. Yeah. And it just goes into that whole thing. You don't know what you don't know, and then you start to know what you don't know, and then you know what you know, and then it's just that the layers of things.
So true, man. So true.
I think about it a lot. And like you said, we're made up in a particular way. So you might be mathematically minded, you might be, good at communication, or, there's so many different ways that we're made up. And for one, that I am not financially literate, and I wasn't built that way. And my family wasn't built that way, or my parents as well. So, what I did become good at was becoming intuitive with human behavior, or understanding people, or finding a way to communicate with people. I felt okay with that because I dealt with a lot of unusual human circumstances throughout my life, and we can talk about that at another time too. But I've really had to lean on you in terms of understanding finances, and our accountants and our financial team and our partners in business, and go, I don't fundamentally understand what is going on here and why this number goes into this, and this goes into this. But it's also, I've got to the stage now where I've been excited to learn.
Yeah.
And at least fundamentally understand, so that, I'm making better decisions. But yeah, it's, I think it's also so important when you know that you don't know something, and you finally become aware of what you don't know, is you should go and try and learn that thing as well.
Definitely, man. And that's a great way, exactly what the podcast really is about now, in terms of learning and growing and understanding that. But as you alluded to within that your strengths came from your upbringing, in terms of, whilst it may not have been a perfect upbringing, but because you had to go through a lot of turmoil, a lot of shifting and moving parts and different people coming into your life, it made you really good dealing with people, multiple personalities, at multiple times with a lot of people. And I think that's probably where you really are obviously the leader of Combat, within not only the brand as a whole, but also within the community and the home of Combat Training Centre, which is just across the road from where we're obviously shooting this. And your ability to guide a team, to guide coaches, to bring even a person that has never been into a martial arts gym feel comfortable, and within weeks to a month have a great experience that they take it on as a lifelong journey, is a skill that barely anyone has, to be honest. I know for a fact that my educational ability to transfer what I know to someone else, I have a struggle with that. Hence, I'm not a teacher. I don't claim to be a coach or anything. I try to just lead by doing, because it's my best way to transfer that someone could possibly copy it. Whereas you are very good at transferring your skills, attributes to other people to enjoy martial arts, work well within an agency, multiple different things. Tell us a bit more about, one, the evolution of the gym, because what people that have come into our ecosystem probably have seen this huge gym that's 550 square meters, just went through a refurb, is about to go through another refurb with the mezzanine to make it more like 600 square meters. And it's got it's a big beast in itself, but it started literally 3 doors down as Apex Training Academy, where there wasn't even water, there wasn't a shower, but you evolved, grew a community of people to now have what is, I guess, Combat.
Yeah, I guess, again, I guess we got to take it back to my personality, and, the decisions that I've made to start businesses have always come very organically. They haven't been forced. I've said openly that, I would have been a great number 2 in a company that treated me the right way. Maybe that's right, but I think that I'm obviously very entrepreneurial at mind, and I would have found a way to start things. But when I left law, and I'm talking about a different business at the moment, but you'll understand the connection. Yep. When I left law, the only reason why I wanted to start a business outside of that was because I didn't have the respect, or I didn't feel as though the place that I was at was respecting me.
Yep.
And I'd gone through a couple of different law firms and felt that the industry was the same way. And so felt the need to take control of my own destiny and therefore start a business of my own. And the same thing happened with the gym. So, my partners our partners in the gym, Jesse and Az, we all trained at the same gym, and we gave everything to that particular gym, and for whatever reason, it was time to move on for me, and to respect myself, and I moved on. The environment wasn't great for me at the time, and martial arts was a very important part of my life, so I needed to move on. And at the time when I left the gym that I was at, because I'm so fiercely loyal, I was going to quit martial arts altogether. But fortunately, Jesse and Aaron had the same experience and decided to sort of follow me into a different journey. And we got together and just organically said, well, we need to keep this going for our own lives and benefits and mental health and physical benefits and all of that sort of stuff. So we decided to band together and create what was Apex Training Academy, ATA. And it was a hobby gym, and a lot of people came. I think we got up to like 50 members or something like that from memory. But it was just so fun. We got to continue doing what we loved doing and building a little community there. And there were times on the mats where, Jesse and I would be sitting there waiting for someone to show up, and no one would show up, and we'd just sort of sit there for hours, and that's all a part of it. Yeah. And then from there, you started training with us, which was the first time that we connected. And there's a story in that too, but throughout the journey and over the years that you were training with us there, I was suffering with a lot of burnout, and you were helping me with my nutrition, and it was then that the idea of combat nutrition was born. And so combat nutrition started first, and we started building products and building this brand and getting it out there into the community. And then all of a sudden a space became available across the body corporate. What do you call it? The
basically in the complex.
In the complex, across in the complex that we were in, and it was a much bigger space, and it was quite a leap. But we kind of looked at it, and it just felt right in our guts that we needed to make this transition. We needed to move Apex into a bigger facility, and we needed to treat it like a proper business.
Yeah, definitely, man. And within that, I'll also obviously don't want to interrupt you, but when there's certain times in life where you look at things on paper, and the paper doesn't read right, but your stomach reads completely different. And I remember doing the plan for combat to move there, change from Apex to that. And if we took the members we had and moved into that next facility, we were going to basically lose $2,500 a week.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it was $2,500 a week that we'd be in the red. And I remember looking at the paper going, this is reading incorrectly, but every bit of us was telling us there's something in doing this that we will attract enough people to give this a go. I don't know what the lesson is in that. Like some people say,
that's a dangerous lesson.
It's a dangerous lesson, but there's also a lesson in the aspect of if you want something bad enough, and every bit of you was willing to say, we were willing to lose the $2,500. That's the thing. Like we knew that we would get there in the end. What were we willing to sacrifice to get there? It was $2,500 a week is what we were willing to sacrifice till we got to that break even. But then we also looked at it and said, how many other people out there are in this exact same position of wanting a better gym, wanting a physio at a gym, wanting a massage therapist, wanting strength and conditioning all in one place, wanting larger mat space, great shower facilities, a pro store that they can buy stock. And we were like, there's a lot of those people. Yeah. We actually talk to those people all the time. They just don't have anywhere right now. So
just to lay the land as well, though, because I think it's important, is we had been spending a lot of time, energy and resources into building the combat nutrition brand, and it was starting to become quite known in the combat sports world. So we had some brand value there.
Very true.
We still had the agency, so we had the resources of the agency, which we didn't necessarily use for Apex, but we knew that we would need to leverage and lean on for the new gym. And also just we knew that, there was the potential to build membership within our community. So it wasn't as though it was a completely blind motivation or action that we were taking, but there was a lot of risk involved. But you saw it as calculated risk, and we always backed ourselves. And I think the thing for Sel and I is we always have a plan A and never fall back on a plan B, and we just make it work. And I think there's a lot of merit in that. So yeah, we saw this space and we thought that it would be an awesome opportunity to create that as the combat training center, which had the combat nutrition branding and would become the HQ for our brand. It was the community that we could connect with the nutrition. We had an ability to create content in there and get professionals involved and all these sorts of things. And people don't realize, but they are two separate businesses, but obviously share the same branding and values and all those sorts of things. So that's basically where Combat Training Center was born. And as you mentioned, we opened a great facility with amazing coaches that we flew from all around the world to come and be the coaches of their gym. And we got strength and conditioning specialists involved and physios and massage therapists and all those sorts of things. And, it's become, an amazing pillar of our community, such an important place of our community. But, it's been going for 3 years, which is not a long time at all.
No.
We've made 6 renovations within, the 6 years that we had Apex Training Academy and now 3 years of Combat Training Center. So literally every year we've renovated and evolved. And I think that that's something that our community is really appreciative of when, in our industry, especially in combat sports, you'll see gyms that still have the same mats from 30 years ago and have no intention of sort of progressing or evolving or striving for better. And I think that's, serves us. The fact that we constantly want to make something better, and the moment that we know it can be better, our minds, sort of go towards that. But it hasn't always been, perfect either.
No, man.
And it still isn't. There's so much, evolution. We're in, an industry in combat sports where there are so many elements involved. And it's such an evolving world and an evolving space, from nutrition to the physical aspect to the technical aspect. It's constantly evolving. And I think that's also what's drawn us to martial arts or combat sports as well, because it, complements our nature in that sense.
Yeah.
But Combat Training Center is a phenomenal community right now, and it's going to continue to evolve, and it's going to continue to branch out and progress and complement our combat nutrition business, which continues to do the same.
Man, so cool. And for those, I definitely encourage anyone that listens to us or just enjoys any type of challenge or growth. This podcast is obviously having a growth mindset to get involved into a martial arts of any format. Doesn't matter. You can have keto for all that it matters. It's more about just being able to do something physical with a group of people that has progression. Like there's a form of, you will always find a way to get better at it. Which I think is something that's missing a lot in a lot of people's lives. Like, you may hit the peak of whatever it is you do in business or personal growth or whatever, but the one thing you'll never, ever, ever master completely is a martial arts, because it's always growing and always evolving. So that's probably the part that resonated with me the most in terms of why I got into it, knowing that to the day I die, I will never, ever be able to master it all. But I'll keep trying. I'll keep doing my best with the hours that I do have left in the day to always try and get a little bit more knowledge. And we've got awesome people there. Such good people to learn from. So yeah, man, it's the best. Yeah,
martial arts is been such a powerful thing for my life. And I think it's because it resembles life so much. Every time you're on the mat, you are getting beaten by, I know that sounds horrible, for those are the kind of words that make someone not so attracted to come, but it's not in that sense. You are losing the the match to someone that's more skillful than you, more athletic than you, more experienced than you. And I think that's it is such a powerful lesson. But you're okay, or you have to tap if you're getting submitted or choked by someone, and you need to practice that vulnerability to be able to tap. So if you have an ego and you don't want to tap, you get put to sleep. I think there's so much power in that.
There is,
and it also shows as well that there is escapes to every bad situation.
True.
And once you start becoming more experienced in the art and you start understanding the ways to move your body in order to escape submission holds from someone who's trying to attack you, has so much power in the real life. And I think that's why I've seen so much progression in terms of personal development from everyone who does martial arts, from, women to kids to fragile men to men who have, egos that negatively affect their life. It's just benefited every single type of person, because they go out into the world and they experience some kind of hardship, but they know that they can get through it. And it builds that resilience, and it builds that confidence in oneself in order to address and answer those problems. And I think there's just nothing else out there that's like that. And then also when we're talking about status, you are rolling or sparring or, working out on the mat with someone who might be, have just sold their business for $500 million. And then you are also with someone who's homeless, or trading couches, or it's like a doctor or a lawyer, but everyone is treated the same. Everyone is equal. That guy who's just sold his business for $500 million is still getting tapped out on choked and having to tap and submit to someone who, has nothing. And there's so much power in that. It brings everyone together and it keeps everyone level. And I think there's just nothing else out there like that. And that's why you're seeing celebrities get involved in martial arts and people like Joe Rogan constantly talking about it and all those sorts of things. And at the end of the day, we do a lot of a martial art called jiu-jitsu. And it's like, man, the pinnacle of jiu-jitsu, I guess, is getting a black belt. And on average, it takes an average person 14, 15 years to get a black belt. That is a long commitment for someone to put into any particular anything, and even then, when someone gets to a black belt level, they start saying, and what you hear commonly is, I feel like I'm just starting again. I feel like I don't know anything about this sport, which is amazing. But anyone that puts that much amount of time and commitment into anything, there's got to be some powerful sort of, results that they get for that. Even to get your PhD in anything doesn't take that much time.
That's true.
Most people build and sell businesses well beyond before that type of time.
Very true.
It's it's amazing to see if, the evolution of someone that commits to a martial arts for any, significant period of time.
That's cool, man. Man, we're coming up to an hour, and one thing I wanted to do was the HYPECAST previously, for those that listened would remember that there was always a thing of leaving lasting words or an impression with our guest on quote, thought, something to live by. With Strive, wanting to make a bit of a change with that and wanting to basically ask someone that knows the guest or us, whoever it may be, a question that they've always wanted to ask and never actually asked in some manner to find out. It may be something they want to know. It may be something that they think other people would want to know about the person, or it may just be like a basic generic thing like, hey, what was your first car? Could be anything. But in this case, because it's our first podcast, I've got a question that I'm going to pose to you. And it's a weird one. It actually gets a bit deep because it came from me and Ellis having a chat maybe about a week and a half ago. And it was about him finding out the gym was going to be refurbed. And he was the one that actually said something to me along the lines of, oh, like, why is that happening? And I said, oh, because it's a great way to provide more for the people that come to the gym, and you'll love it, and Ryder will love it, and all the other kids will love it, and Eli, and there'll be more room, and there'll be this. And he's like, oh, okay, cool. But why are you wanting to give more? And because he's in this age, he's 7, by the way, for anyone that doesn't know how old my son is. And he's in this age right now being very curious to wanting to understand a lot of things. And one of the things that he always wants to understand is, like, should I give or should I receive? And it's very much a case of him saying, like, if you didn't, and he was trying to get to it and he couldn't speak clearly enough to intellect it, but I understood what he was saying. He was like, isn't that going to cost money to do this gym refurb? And I was like, yeah, it is, but people will like it. But he was trying to say, but wouldn't you rather keep it the same and keep the money, is what he was trying to get towards. And I got it out of him, what he was trying to say, that the gym is fine the way it is. If you spend this money to refurb it, then you won't have as much money yourself. He was referring to me, but in a roundabout term, he was referring to all of us that are involved in the gym. And so when he was asking that, it made me really think. And out of all the people I know, you give the most of yourself to other people. And I'm not referring to financial or anything. I'm just referring to your soul and essence and being of giving, be it education, time, worth, etc. Where did that come from is probably the question, and why do you continue to do it? Noting that, and I'm the person that sees it probably the most, apart from Holly, noting I know how much it takes out of you, and often what you don't get back from it. What makes you keep doing it?
Jeez, man, that is deep. That's a great question, and it's so exciting that Ellis is thinking in those ways, and I think it's very important. I think that, speaking logically, I think that growing up in a European household made me that way. I mean, if you come and have dinner or lunch with my grandma, she'll force feed you, and she gets so much fulfillment out of feeding you and wanting to provide for you. And even if she's sick or she is struggling to walk because she's got issues with her leg or something, she'll be in the kitchen and trying to make something for you, even to the point where it's annoying. But like that's her she gets a lot of fulfillment out of that. So I think that naturally that as we were speaking about earlier, about the fact that when you're born, you're a blank canvas, and you become part, or you're built based on your environment and the influences around you. I think that my grandma was an extremely big influence for me, because I didn't necessarily have my dad or my mum around, at a great level, or I felt as though my grandma looked after me for the most part, and she was very, very much that European grandma that you can sort of envisage right now when you think about it. And so I think that I naturally became that way. My mum was like that too. I remember a story when we were walking through King's Cross once. I really wanted this coloured pencil set, and she had $2 left, and she wanted to get some milk. And instead of getting the milk, she gave me the pencil set. And my grandma always reminded me of that story. So obviously my mum was the same way as well. And then I also remember times where, my grandma didn't have any money, and she would work in this ice cream factory, and she made $200, and I wanted these skateboard shoes, and she went and spent the $200 to get me the skateboard shoes. So I think it was just around me. And I also noticed how much fulfillment that gave them. They felt like they were providing for me, even to their detriment, but the fulfillment was so far greater than the detriment, that they received, that it was just, it became a habit and something that they continued to do. So I think in a logical sense, it was ingrained in me. I also think, if I think about it from a different perspective, I think that there is a long game and a short game in life. And I think that the short game is a selfish one, where you try to enrich yourself or get gains quickly, and you take them yourself because you feel like there's scarcity, where in reality there's abundance, but abundance comes over time, and abundance comes from your ability to share value with others and become build that value within yourself to the point where in some way or another, over time, it comes back to you. And I think that it's like brand value, where it's too hard to put your finger on where it comes from. Mm-hmm. Whereas like the short-term sales is like that short-term thinking that I was telling you about. Yeah. Whereas like the brand value comes from repeated actions over time, and people sort of like then build an understanding of who you are and the value you bring to the community. And I think that where we benefit from that is, when we build a business like Combat Training Center, people want to come and be a part of it. Or when it's, a marketing agency, people want to come and be a part of it. Or whether it's a nutrition business, people trust that the products that we make are going to be good for them because they understand who we are and because, they see us and who we are, and we're always trying to give value and things like that. So I think that I've, in my own head and what my ego says, and I've never said this out loud, I feel like we've cracked the code in creating long-lasting success. Yep. And what will eventually bring us wealth in the future is by not caring so much about the short-term cash, yep, and thinking about the long-term value that we can give, that in turn will give us long-term value back. And I think that I need to spend time to be able to sort of like decipher my thought process around that question so I can answer it more articulately. But, I hope I've sort of danced around it in a sense.
Perfectly answered.
I think we will have a successful life based on wanting to give. But then at the same time, you're right, it can be a detriment. So you need to understand the balance. And, it's been the cause of like a lot of, hard situations with my partner, Holly, who's like, wow, fuck, you're giving so much to other people. What about our own family? Yeah. Why are we suffering to pay bills right now when you've just given $200 to old mate to do whatever? Yeah. And I've had to understand that as well. Yeah. Like there is a balance. You need to be able to fill your cup before you can give water to someone else. And I'm getting better at that as time goes on.
And great way to end the podcast, bro. Easy. Thanks for everyone for listening. We're back. I'm stoked, and obviously, as you can tell, we've got a lot on our minds that we're gonna dump on you guys. So again, thanks for listening. The branding and everything. Give us your feedback. We'd love to hear it in terms of what you think of the new podcast and new platform, new studio, and really, really enjoying getting back to all this right now.
Epic, bro.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, guys.